Welcome to the Fantasy Happy Hour. Fantasy Happy Hour. Presented by SportsSneak. With your hosts, Justin Sauce and Terry Licious. Starting in 3, 2, 1.
Boom, here we go. Week 5 Fantasy Happy Hour. We got the 1-2-1 Indianapolis Colts versus the 2-2 Denver Broncos. Thus, coming off of a big win, or big loss from the Oakland Raiders, Las Vegas Raiders, who now leave my Houston Texans, the only winless team in the NFL. And the Colts coming off of a big loss to the Titans, a divisional AFC South matchup to also put the Texans at the bottom of the barrel here. So, Taryn, let's jump into this riveting Thursday nighter.
Well, I think the biggest thing about this game is you got to start with the injury news. There's some big injuries in this game, and it starts with Jonathan Taylor, questionable. Early thoughts are that it was a high ankle sprain, but it came back negative, so he might play. So really watch him. He's like by far their highest usage, probably the biggest lock in this game from a fantasy perspective, if there was a guy. So if he's out, I'll talk a bit in the running backs here about other guys. And then Javonte Williams, torn ACL, out for the season. So that's huge news and really disappointing. He was set to have a really good year this year, and now he's out, and their backup is Melvin Gordon and Mike Boone. So we'll see where those guys stand now. But if we go into the quarterbacks here, Matt Ryan, I mean, he's been in chase mode most of the season. They've been losing most games. His pass volume's been up, especially last week due to being trailing against the Titans. The defense of the Broncos has been really good. So, I mean, it's a tough game. Matt Ryan's looked kind of like he throws ducks, in my opinion. I don't know if you watch his throws. They just seem slow. It seems like his ball flight is just not spiraling like a normal quarterback. So to me, a defense like this is going to eat him up. But I mean, with that said, if the Broncos get out to an early lead in showdown, it really doesn't matter if he sucks in the beginning because he's going to throw a lot to catch up. So that could be the move if you expect this to go the Broncos' way. Russ has been kind of average. He finally had a good game there last week. So is this a blow-up spot for Russ? These two teams who kind of been disappointing all year. So he hit 27.5 DK points last week and finally looked, a little more himself. So I think this is a chance you could take Russ with the Colts defense not looking that great so far this season. These defenses, although look like the Broncos looked really good and have low scoring games, points wise, they're not that high. So that's kind of an interesting defensive perspective here. But let's dive down. So for quarterbacks, I guess to finalize that, I don't know who you take. I think it's stack driven. So take it if you're stacking the passing game for the Broncos, take Russ. If you're thinking it's a trailing game with the running game for the Broncos, maybe take Matt Ryan. So let's dive into these running backs, and I'm going to lead with a guy named Mike Boone, who no one's thinking of initially. So Melvin Gordon has had lingering injuries all season. Williams is now out. Boone outsnapped Gordon 19-10 coming into that game last week. So Boone, when he started or got more than 50% of the snaps, he has 15.3 DK points a game and 15 touches on average. So that's big for a guy that's kind of nobody's going to think of right away. He's also their top pass catching running back, I guess, in a sense. And he's in the top 1% of burst speed. So I think this is a guy you could really sneak in. I don't know the pricing yet. I assume DK is going to be good on it. So they usually do. They're pretty good on catching up to these. So I would guess he's in that middling 4 or 5K range, but great play in my opinion on the Broncos side. And then it gets to the backfield of, the Colts, which is a bit of an unknown until we find out the Taylor news later in the week. But I mean, if you think the Colts are trailing, Nyheim Hines is the guy. He always has been. That's his role there. He's a pass catching running back, but he's not a very startable, every down running back. So if you think this is a trailing game and you want Hines as the catch-up guy, get a lot of, those receptions for points. But if not, and Taylor doesn't play, Deion Jackson, Galaxy brain play here. We got double backup running backs, third string running backs coming in. So Deion Jackson, 2021 undrafted free agent. He's got elite speed and size. So he's 220 pounds and he's top 10% in speed. So sneaky play. I think there's two running backs in this game that are coming in as the third guy, but could be huge. And I think even if Taylor plays, if you expect him to be held back, this Deion Jackson could come in as, to save Taylor, because they're not going to want to injure him further. He's like basically their dynasty right now is basically through Jonathan Taylor at this point. So I don't know. I like these backup running backs as good fillers, and they should be good priced. So wide receiver is probably the weakest part of this entire thing for the Colts. Alex Pierce has been out targeting Michael Pittman. So that's kind of interesting. It's a bit bizarre. Nobody really knows about Pittman. I don't think we should panic. So I think he is playable. He is their best wide receiver, but again, he's going to get a lot of Surtain, who's the cornerback there, who's been very, very good against very good wide receivers, even against Devontae Adams last week. Devontae had a good game, but this Surtain made some great plays against him. Like he just looks like he's a talented cornerback here. If you want to go cheaper in that core of the Colts, it could be, I think it's Pierce. Well, the guy I mentioned, Pierce, or you can go Paris Campbell to get the, more usage. This past game has been very tight end happy, so I'll get into that here in a bit. But so you're banking on a wide receiver doing well, which is pretty rare here. But if we go to the other side, Broncos, Courtland Sutton, 35 targets through 4 games. He's the clear number one here for Russ, and you're kind of seeing that he's the guy he goes to on third downs. Judy is kind of up and down. He has those spike games and then just nothing. So, a lot less reliable, but he will get that deep ball. And if he runs it in, that's huge in showdown. KJ Hamler last week came in, got 1 reception for 55 yards. So, he takes that to the house. He probably is paying in a showdown. So, watch that at a cheaper price. But I don't really love the pass games as much in this game. I think these are both good defenses in that regard. But if I had to lean, it'd be Sutton and probably Alex Pierce on the other side. Tight end. So this is another interesting stat. There's a lot of kind of little tidbits about this game. If the Colts could use more tight ends in a game, I think they would win, because their last 2 games, they've had 2 touchdowns each, both by 2 tight ends. They both got 2 TD games. So if we look at last game, so there's Mo Alie-Cox, Granson, and what is it? Something Woods. I forget his full name, Jelani Woods. So they combined for 11 receptions, 180 yards, and 2 touchdowns last week against the Titans. So they were both the TDs for the Titans, and that was over half of Matt Ryan's passing yards, was 2 tight ends. So I don't know if he loves them, but it's been 2 weeks in a row where his tight ends are his priority. So I think if you're going to get guys in this, you might even just be able to stack Matt Ryan with tight ends. So it's something to be unique. And so Mo Alie-Cox had 2 TDs 2 weeks ago. Jelani Woods, 2 TDs last week, or I mixed those up, but they both had 2 TDs back weeks. So is it Granson's week? Maybe he's got the double TD in him. So maybe that's the route we're going. On the other side, the tight ends have been basically non-existent. So you got tail of 2 tapes here. Broncos haven't used any tight ends. I think they have a total of 3 receptions on the year, 1 TD, which was just a 1 8-yard TD. So they're not getting used at all, and they have pretty good wide receivers, Judy, and they also use the running backs a ton out of the backfield. So I think tight ends just kind of get forgotten here. So these are long shots if you're going to take them. Defenses have been average. Each have a 1 pick, 2 and 3, fumbles, total of 11, 7 sacks between the 2 of them. Stats wise are minimal, but this is too bad kind of offenses lately. Well, at the beginning of the season, picked it up last week. So could this be low scoring, or is this kind of those, again, average game? But overall, a lot of fun little stats in this one. So pass it to Justy for the double doink.
Yeah, we got on the ball side here for the kickers. Chase McLaughlin coming in, replaces Rodrigo Blankenship, one of my favorite kickers in the league with those thick glasses. But after his disappointing 2-week start there, he gets the snips, and we got McLaughlin coming in. Not much action for him. 3 for 4 on the field goals, 51-yard long, 100% on the extra points, 8 fantasy points per game. On the other side of the ball, we got Brandon McManus. He's coming in 8 for 10 with a 55-er as the long. I think he had 2 50-yarders last week as well, which I guess this past week. And then, he did have 255. He's 2 for 4 on the 50-plussers, but he's getting a lot of opportunity for those. And then 4 for 5 on the extra points and 8.25 fantasy points per game. Now, should you take the kickers? Most of the time, we usually skew to no. This week, though, however, I think it might be a decent option. And the reason being is both of these teams have scored 20 points or less with every game, with the exception of the Broncos getting 23 this past week. So relatively low scoring, which means there's a little bit more opportunity for the kickers here. If I'm going to guess, it depends on your game script, which one you want to take, but I would go for McManus on the Broncos side of the ball. He's getting they're giving him a lot of opportunities at the 50+ yard range. And that's just going to get you those extra fantasy points, especially if you're mixing and matching lineups and you need people to get in and out of, you're not really confident in some of the receivers or running backs. Not to mention the amount of injury news. So good to mix those guys up this week, I think. The only downside I could really see is if this is somehow kind of like the Lions last week, where it's like 48-45 and it's just a complete shootout and both these teams go off, then you might be a little bit more shit out of luck with these picks. But if we're expecting another low scoring game and a boring Thursday nighter, then they might be an option for you. Anything else to add on this one, Taryn?
No, it's really all about the injury news. A lot of fun backups if you want to get, exciting in this one, because there's lots of weird plays. A lot of tight ends and running backs could be interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you guys for watching this one. If you guys enjoy the video, please give us a like. Let us know who you're taking in the comments, or tear our picks apart. Let us know what kind of insight you got on these weird games like this, where you get a bunch of third stringers coming up from the practice squad. And if you enjoy our content, give us a subscribe. It would really help. Or watch either my Texans videos or Taryn's Viking videos if you're one of the fans of those two teams. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week for week 6. Peace.